Good evening, and thank you, Mayor Bass. As of this afternoon, the Los Angeles Police Department is on tactical alert and in a state of partial mobilization. These designations are critical tools that allow us to expand our operational capacity to safeguard our communities and respond effectively to any unrest or unlawful activity. Let me explain for the public what all these means in practical terms. When we declare a tactical alert, we're activating a department-wide operational posture that enables us to reallocate officers rapidly, hold over shifts as needed, and prioritize major incidents. Officers assigned to the field remain in their areas unless they're reassigned. Activities are narrowed to police work of significance or major importance, and officers who are able to return to the field in their areas of assignment. We also notify all relevant command staff, including my office, the Office of Operations, Emergency Operations Division, in order to ensure seamless communication and coordination. In response to current events, we've also implemented partial mobilization of the department, which means we've extended watch hours, deferred days off for some personnel, and alerted off-duty officers to be ready for deployment. Our ability to scale up quickly is essential during this kind of fluid and unpredictable situation. We're deeply appreciative of the assistance we've received through the California Mutual Aid System, with officers and deputies from across Southern California already on the ground in Los Angeles supporting our efforts. We're also aware of reports that the President intends or has deployed U.S. Marines to Los Angeles. The introduction of federal military personnel without direct coordination creates logistical challenges and risks confusion during critical incidents. The Los Angeles Police Department, alongside our mutual aid partners, have decades of experience managing large-scale public demonstrations, and we remain confident in our ability to be able to do so professionally and effectively. We urge full transparency and communication across all levels of government. Our priority is simple: keep both the public and law enforcement officers safe and to maintain order. To the public, we fully support your right to peacefully protest, but let me be absolutely clear. Those who choose to incite violence, engage in vandalism or graffiti, or attack officers will be arrested. There is no tolerance for criminal activity under the guise of protest. And many ask, you know, not a lot of people, relatively speaking, have been arrested during this incident. Well, I would say that I wouldn't argue with you on that, but many more will be arrested as the investigation continues. There will be many more subsequent arrests. Finally, I want to offer my deep gratitude to the men and women of the LAPD and all of our partner agencies who are out there standing side by side. They're working long hours under intense pressure, and what I've seen is professionalism, courage, and commitment to this city has never been more evident than in the past couple of days. Thank you all very much.
Buenas tardes y gracias al alcalde Bass de la ciudad de Los Ángeles.
Okay, so we've been listening to a press conference. You just heard from Los Angeles Police Chief Jim McDonnell there talking about how the police department has now been issued a tactical alert, ramping up staffing, bringing people in who are off, making sure all the officers are ready, scaling up quickly. He called this an unpredictable situation.
Yes, and very fluid. That means those are already on. They will be held over on their shifts. He also talked about mutual aid, which is, I'm going to talk to Mike about that in a minute, but the mutual aid, that's getting help from other jurisdictions. He seems to feel comfortable with the other departments outside of Los Angeles coming to help LAPD, which is very different from hearing that they can't control the situation. Even last night, Chief McDonnell said, yeah, they were a bit overwhelmed, if I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah.
But he said we would assess the situation. So it sounds like today that he believes that they can control what's happening. He even mentioned that the deployment of the Marines you know, without coordination would just sort of add more confusion.
Yeah, confusion and chaos, and it's got to be a very coordinated effort, and that is what LA County, the law enforcement agencies in LA County are able to do, because there is a plan already in place for mutual aid here. There is a mutual aid coordinator. There are ways to do that communication-wise, not only with the department heads and the chiefs and the sheriffs, but with radios and be able to communicate with each other on the ground. There are mutual aid frequencies they can all talk on. It's a well-established plan in Los Angeles County, and the chief seems to think and says that that is a good plan and one that they have been able to make work and one that they can continue to make work in this situation.
And that also includes, when we're talking about Pasadena Police Department, other local jurisdictions, CHP, of course, has capability. They can call in whoever they want, right? There are agencies from
statewide,
from all over the state of California, which could happen if need be. Is that correct?
Right, and CHP has already mobilized more CHP officers from other part of the state to bring them down here. So they've already pulled from within their department. We saw yesterday Pasadena, Burbank, Alhambra, I thought Montebello, Torrance, all of those agencies also came in to assist LAPD. 100 sheriff's deputies came in to assist LAPD. So there is, I mean, yes, I mean, there's a lot of people in downtown LA, but LA County as a whole has a lot of different law enforcement agencies that can and have stepped up to help LAPD, you know, deal with this in this time.
You know, what we haven't heard so far is if they have been in contact or coordination with the with our, not just law enforcement, but our armed services. You know, if the Marines are coming here, the additional National Guard, if they've had talks with them and efforts to coordinate everything that's supposed to happen. I've not heard that.
No, and in fact, in Chief McDonnell's statement, the written statement that he sent us earlier, he said that the department had not even been notified that the Marines were being deployed to LA. And that was what prompted his comments about an uncoordinated effort will certainly present logistical and operational challenges when dealing with all of this. So, you know, we had a number of elected officials on last night, and here comes the chief back to the podium so we can listen to it in English.
Who is in our Professional Standards Bureau. I'm also joined by Commander Ryan Whiteman, who usually works Operations South Bureau, but during this incident is the day watch incident commander. So I'll take any questions you have. If they're detailed questions, Commander Whiteman would probably be better able to answer those.
How does the mobilization that might be coming affect what you guys are trying to do on the ground, and what is your biggest concern with that?
Yeah, the mobilization is what we do internally to be able to get more officers out there. We had declared that earlier, and now we'll have the ability to have roughly 400 additional officers deployed to the field.
Are you concerned with the federal mobilization? I mean, the National Guard and the Marines possibly coming this way?
Yeah, when I look at this, and my assessment may not be accurate based on this thing's continuously churning, but I see two parallel tracks that don't work together, if you will. We're dealing with the issues on the street that you see every day. We deal with that with LAPD resources. When we need additional resources, then we reach out to the sheriff, who brings in mutual aid. We have 14 different agencies working with us for that purpose. And then only if we weren't able to continue to deal with that, needed additional help, would we reach out to the sheriff, who would then request National Guard from the governor. So that's one line. The other part then is the National Guard were federalized by the president to support federal agents who are working on behalf of ICE to do their operation. The Marines were brought in then today, evidently, to join the Army National Guard in doing what their main mission has been identified as, which is the protection of federal employees and federal property.
Do you feel that incites those? Do you feel that makes it any different on the street?
You know, I think everybody, it's a very emotional topic, absolutely. You know, could I quantify what that is? I think it has certainly heightened everybody's level of awareness and certainly anxiety. But to be able to quantify that, I wouldn't.
Chief, how are you we'll take two more questions, and then the chief has to step out, but he'll come back.
I'll be back.
How are you avoiding less lethal weapons being used on people who are merely there in the way, potentially? Because it doesn't seem like everyone that's being hit is being attacked, including press. I don't know, like, it doesn't really make any sense that people are just being shot at.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you
Sure.
explain how you minimize or at least just not do that?
Yeah, we minimize it through training, through the equipment we use. It is a target-specific munition. That's not to say that it always hits the intended target, particularly in a dynamic situation. I know that the situation you're referring to with the member of the media, we saw that. We're very concerned about that, and we're looking into that.
About the horse trampling and the horse.
Yeah, we're also aware of that, and we're looking at that as well.
Chief, Jeff, go ahead, and then Mary Beth, and then he's going to come back, guys.
You know, all of the streets surrounding the federal building complex, Los Angeles, Temple, Aliso, Alameda, they've all been cleared. You pushed the crowd away from them.
Right.
I know you can't talk about all of your tactics, but in terms of the benchmarks that you want to hit tonight, are you moving people away from the freeway as well by clearing out those streets and moving them towards the west?
Yeah, we're trying to move them away from wherever the threat is. So if there are people assaulting officers, which is often the reason they're taking rocks or bottles or pieces of concrete, then they will attempt to disperse that crowd so that they're not enabled to continue to do that, and move them out. If they can target individuals who've been the ones who are the aggressors, who are throwing the rocks, and they can safely go in and arrest those individuals, they will. Some of those will be arrested later, and after having been identified. And so this thing is moving forward in a way that some get frustrated with and watch. But we're out there, and we have an approach to this where we're not going to move a crowd into an area where it's going to cause additional problems, into the Civic Center or into the freeway. We're going to move them away where we think they can do the least damage, and we're going to try then and employ tactics that would minimize that even further.
Mary Beth, and he's
How
going to come
many
back, guys.
businesses have been damaged and looted? I know there, LAPD, one of the divisions had put out that there was looting going on at 6th and Broadway. And as the National Guard, have they actually engaged with these protesters? Some media outlets were reporting that they were actually sending out tear gas, and I know on our channel, we did not see that.
No, not that I'm aware of at all. That I'm aware of, there were at least 3 businesses that were broken into and property taken from them along Broadway and maybe other places. As far as the National Guard deploying anything other than around the federal building, I'm not aware of anything like that.
Right? Oh, headquarters damaged, correct?
Yeah, damaged, yeah. The whole Civic Center, there was significant damage as it relates particularly to graffiti, broken windows, that kind of thing.
Chief, was any talk about a possible curfew at all? There had been some mention about if things had continued at this point, any thought of curfew?
Yeah, I know, we're always thinking about that. That's always a tool we can employ. We certainly hold that off and not wanting to do that. And this is a pretty isolated area where this is happening relative to the size of the city. So we would, if we were to use that, it would be done very judiciously.
All right, Chief, thanks.
All right, we'll be back. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Good evening, everyone. As I'm sure you are aware, there was a large protest this afternoon. Protests, and then also David Huerta, our esteemed labor leader in charge of SEIU, USWW, was released from custody this afternoon. So there was a rally around City Hall that ended up at the federal building. It was peaceful. It's my understanding that there's a few hundred individuals that are at the federal building now, but that there is no reports of violence that have taken place today or of vandalism. Of course, with the crowd just there, we will worry as it gets dark as to whether or not there are problems, but we certainly hope that there will not be. I just want to say I started off my morning with a meeting with a number of the leaders from the immigrant rights organizations. And as far as we know right now, there have been 5 raids by ICE throughout the region. I don't know. I know of at least 1 or 2 that took place in the city, but we're still compiling that information. As you know, ICE does not tell anybody where they're going to go or when they're going to be there. But I think the thing that was most important about the meeting today was listening to the stories of the people. For example, there was a woman, a mother from Guatemala, who was looking for her husband. She wasn't able to hear about her husband and son that were detained at the Ambiance warehouse. She's not been able to locate him or to communicate with him. And for the most part, the people that have been detained have been denied access to legal representation This is unprecedented. In the past, when there were raids, lawyers were able to go in and meet with their clients. So she's running around the area trying to find her husband, not knowing if he's here, has he been taken to another city, has he been deported out of the country. There was another statement regarding a daughter who was searching for her detained father, and at a certain point, she actually saw him moving into a detention facility, but since then, as far as she knows, he has disappeared. She is not able to find out where he is. I can't emphasize enough the level of fear and terror that is in Angelenos right now, not knowing if tomorrow or tonight it might be where they live, it might be their workplace. Should you send your kids to school? Should you go to work? And you remember this from several years ago, this same type of fear that was going around. But I heard today about something that is so over the top. Can you imagine having your annual appointment to ICE, your annual appointment? You're here, you might not be a citizen, but you have papers, and you are told that you need to go to the facility to check in. And then you are detained, and you go with your family and your kids, and the whole family is detained when you were legal and you were trying to maintain your legal status. So what this means then is that people are going to be afraid to maintain their appointments, which then pushes them into the closet, and they will fall out of status and then subject to arrest. This is the kind of thing that is happening in our city right now, and I will just take you back to last Thursday. Last Thursday, there was nothing happening in this town that called for the raids that took place on Friday. Nothing was happening. Nothing warranted the raids. If you remember at the beginning of this administration, we were told that raids would be to look for violent criminals, people who had warrants. But I don't know how you go from a drug dealer to a Home Depot, to people's workplaces where they're just trying to make a living. At Home Depot, you have day laborer centers so that the people that are trying to seek work each and every day will have a place to be so that it doesn't interfere with the business. These are not the people that we were told were going to be detained. And it makes me feel like our city is actually a test case for what happens when the federal government moves in and takes the authority away from the state or away from local government. I don't think that our city should be used for an experiment to see what happens in the nation's second largest city. Well, maybe we can do this to other cities. And then I read a description of our city that was so troubling to me. A description of our city that says that we have been invaded and occupied by illegal aliens and criminals, and that now violent insurrectionist mobs are swarming and attacking our federal agents. I don't know if anybody has seen that happen, but I've not seen that happen. And obviously there has been violence, and the violence is unacceptable, and we can talk about that in a minute. But to describe our city as a migrant invasion, and that we need to put an end to the migrant riots, and to call on various secretaries of the administration to go after our city because we want order to be restored, the illegals will be expelled, and Los Angeles will be set free. How is this a description? This is a despicable description of our city. Our city needs to come together now and not accept this, not allow us to be divided. We are a city of immigrants, and we have always embraced that. And if you want to hit our economy, you scare people from going to work, because you know there are sectors of our economy in this city where immigrant labor is the majority of the workforce. So this is damaging. It's damaging to individuals, it's damaging to families, but it is also damaging to our economy. Now I want to talk for a few minutes about the violence and the vandalism that has happened after the protests. We are fortunate in our city to have a well-established institutions that promote and fight for the rights of immigrants. They have protests and rallies often, a couple of times a year, and they never devolve into violence. Well, these protests have, and what typically happens is a fringe element, many times not even connected to the major protests, takes the opportunity to create havoc and commit vandalism. And I will tell you, it infuriated me but it also
Okay,
just
we're bringing down Mayor
saddens
Bass's
to
microphone
drive
right
through
now to
downtown
invite
right
you
now
to
and
KCAL
to see
News
the
at 6
level
o'clock.
of
We are
obscene
simulcasting
graffiti
on
all
Channel
over
2
buildings.
and KCAL
And I
9.
just say that anybody that does that, don't come and say that you are supporting immigrant rights, the rights of immigrants. You can't possibly be supporting immigrants and vandalize our city. And understand that if you do that, and it is 100% unacceptable, you will be arrested, and it might not happen that day. So don't think because you went home that night that you are free. There's a lot of videotape, there's investigations that will take place, and you will be held accountable and frankly need to be separated from the people who are really fighting on behalf of our immigrant community. And we need to stop the raids. This should not be happening in our city. It is not warranted, and the only thing it does is contribute to chaos. This was chaos that was started at Washington, D.C. On Thursday, the city was peaceful. On Friday, it was not because of the intervention of the federal government. And it's, again, I don't think our city should be a test case, a laboratory. With that, I'm happy to open up for questions. Whoa, 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 whoa.
What's your reaction to the deployment of 700 Marines?
I mean, we didn't need the National Guard. Why on earth? What are they going to do? Do you know what the National Guard is doing now? They are guarding 2 buildings. They're guarding the federal building here in downtown, and they're guarding the federal building in Westwood. That's what they're doing. So they need Marines on top of it? I don't understand that. That's why I feel like we are part of an experiment that we did not ask to be a part of.
Have you been in contact with President Trump or anyone from the administration? And if you could speak to him, what would you say right now?
I would say stop the raids. Stop the raids, period. I would say give the power back to our governor. And if we need the National Guard, we can do it in the normal circumstances, which is the request is made local and the governor decides or not to grant that to our city.
And have you been in contact with the administration?
I have been in contact with the administration, not the president.
Right here in these stripes and then Robin. You touched on it lightly, but has the National Guard contributed in any meaningful way in crowd control in the past 2 years?
No. The National Guard is guarding the federal building. Now, there was an incident that I saw where there were vehicles that needed to get into the federal building, and so the National Guard cleared the area, and that's where I saw gas, that's where I saw, the flashbangs.
Robert and then Liz.
Mayor Bass, when it comes to the people that you're talking about right now on the streets of Los Angeles that are looked at worldwide, what are your sources on the ground telling you in terms of, are the people there with a message regarding immigration being now outnumbered and possibly outrun by these vandals, as you're calling them?
No, I don't believe so at all. I mean, when you see their numbers, it's when everybody's left. So the crowd could be thousands. And then late at night, by the time you see their numbers, you might see 100 or so. So they're not being outnumbered. And I don't know of anybody that identifies with them. In other words, they're part of our organization or they're not. The flyer that was out for the rally on Saturday night was a flyer that had no organizational affiliation. So we don't know what it is. I mean, it could be like what happens with the illegal parties, where people, put out a word and on social media it draws a crowd.
I think a lot of people in this city agrees with you, and I'm sure appreciate you speaking up for them. I'm wondering, would it be more powerful if, they got a chance to be lawyered up, to fight back against the fact that they're being detained potentially against their violating their civil rights? Is there anything that you can talk about providing legal representation? For example, the city of LA just approved a budget with money for legal representation for immigrants. And so that felt like an uphill battle, and more probably maybe needed. Is there anything that you can say about what can be done about, posting bail, about
let me just say that the immigrant rights organizations that have existed here for a long time are providing that type of support. I cannot see a possibility of the city of Los Angeles bailing people out with city funds. Whether or not there are resources to legal services, typically what that is a contract with an organization to do that work. We have those contracts. I don't have any reason to believe that they would end.
But would it help negate what Trump is trying to do, trying to deport people, like in a very indiscriminate fashion, seemingly.
Right. It will help to negate it when people have legal help. Yes?
Mayor, if I may, you talked about how you're in communication with the White House.
I was.
You were. And in terms of, the budgetary problems that you're facing, has a part of that conversation been about reimbursing the city for law enforcement overtime?
No, let me just tell you that my conversations with the administration was before the deployment of the National Guard. I was trying to make the case that the National Guard was not needed here. I was trying to make the case that if the National Guard came here, it would be a provocative move, and it would be like a deliberate attempt to create disorder and chaos in our city. It was very predictable what was going to happen here, and it was completely unnecessary. This was a solution in search of a problem, and the problem was not happening on Thursday.
We're going to go here and then when it comes to the solutions, the administration has claimed that there's a lack of transparency when it comes to what they know. Have you considered...
What they know? What are they looking for?
Well, there's been released information when it comes to potential ICE raids, and they've said
when
it comes to working with them, would you be considering to give them a list of the violent criminals to particularly focus on the ones who they should be focusing on?
I mean, I don't have that list, and I don't think our chief has that list. So to me, you would be talking about federal warrants, which means the federal government would have the list of violent federal criminals.
Mayor, hi. It appears that this is going to continue from all the representatives we talked to on the congressional level, 30 days. So what can then we expect? What can you tell both the immigrant population, the city population about what?
Well, let me just say, in terms of the immigrant population...
Okay, we've been listening to a press conference, a joint press conference given by first Police Chief, LAPD Police Chief Jim McDonnell, and now Mayor Karen Bass.